date?
It was the 11th.
Good evening. This is the Village Council Public Workshop. The date is June 25th, 2025. The time is 7:48. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled the same as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Councilmember Mortimer.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Perrin. Here. Councilmember Whites is absent. Councilmember Winograd. Here. Mayor Vagianos.
Here, will you all please join us in a salute to our flag? Please forgive us for the late start. We had an extra item added to our closed session agenda that took an extra few minutes. So I apologize for any inconvenience. Let's go right to public comments.
Is that on?
I think it's,
Oh, green light. Okay.
There we go.
Cynthia O'Keefe, Ridgewood resident. So at the last meeting, I think it was June 11th.
Cynthia, if you could keep your mouth near the mic, because as you turned away, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
Okay. So I think we had the same problem, except I dialed into the June 11th meeting, and I don't think you could hear me, so I'm going to repeat, actually, not word for word, but kind of the gist of what I was
By all means.
trying to get at. You had the interns here, and you were, congratulating them, and I think it's great to get young people involved in, civic engagement and working in a municipality. You congratulated them for being maybe the future leaders of, Ridgewood someday. And so my question to you, which none of you answered, by the way, but it's okay. I don't think you were, trying to ignore me. Maybe you were trying to rush home. The meeting, ran long, whatever. But I'm going to ask again, and I'd like some kind of a response this evening, is that, when you make decisions that I mentioned, like artificial turf, that I'll also talk about with the heat over the past few days, but you're making a decision on the Shedler proposed plan to cut down hundreds of trees and put artificial turf next to private wells. And so how are we treating the future generation of Ridgewood? Like, we're going to ruin the planet. We're not taking actionable steps. Frank, you talked about B-City. In my opinion, that's BS, if you ask me, because this is smoke and mirrors. Look over here. Look at all these great things Ridgewood's doing. We're green, but you're not really when you're still talking about artificial turf. And this can be a grossly negligent action that we are fighting against for over 2 years now. So that was my question to you. I did not get a response. Over the last several days, and Hinchcliffe Stadium was the stadium that you referenced in the SHPO plan, in the proposed application to SHPO, saying, look at what a great project, and you approved artificial turf. It's a completely different project, but there were over 150 people who needed medical attention the other day when there were 5 graduations. 5 graduations from the city of Patterson had to be canceled, people taken away on stretchers, and they were not even playing sports. Artificial turf gets up to degrees of over 100, well over 100, could be almost 180. You're asking children to play on this? And just the other night, there was a young man recognized at the Board of Ed meeting on Monday who got a prestigious award, but he had to run out after getting his award on Monday night of this week because he had a soccer championship, and it was definitely 90-plus degrees. So I hope the kid wasn't playing on turf for his sake. I just don't think that we are making smart decisions for our environment. We know turf cannot be recycled. I've said it a million times, and you can all do your own research. The information is there. Whether you believe in the science or not, why would you take a risk with people's health? The health of the children and the welfare of the people in our community. I just don't understand it. I think it's grossly negligent. I don't know why we're marching in this direction. And once again, I hope the NJDEP and Historic Sites Council and SHPO shoots this project down, because it is, as I've said before, a terrible project. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Anybody else from the audience? Seeing no one, we're going to go to hybrid access. Catherine, you're up. Catherine, you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, I think I unmuted myself. So I am here tonight in support of the agenda item regarding the special
Please
improvement
identify
district.
yourself.
Yes, Catherine Schmidt, 123 South Irving Street in Ridgewood.
And Catherine, just so you know, we've changed our policy. You only need to state that whether or not you were a Ridgewood resident going forward.
Okay, everybody knows where I live anyway.
Yeah, well.
But I am here tonight in support of the agenda item about the Special Improvement District. I was a member of the feasibility study team, and I'm excited to envision how a SID can energize our downtown even more. So I look forward to tonight's and any further discussions on this topic. But while I have the platform, I also want to endorse everything Cynthia just said. I too saw the article about Patterson and talked about the decisions that we were making about turf. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Susan, you're up.
Susan Ruan, I live in Ridgewood. I'm calling to thank the council for giving the internship recognition last week, or a few weeks ago. My son was recognized, so he was very happy with it, and we have to frame it. The second is a sore subject, but I will bring it up anyway because our neighborhood is in limbo. What is happening with the Kingsbridge footbridge? Or we all are in questioning to what happened. I know we were initially told March, then May, and then I heard June, and it's almost July. So that was a topic of, and also will notices be sent out, just to even post it at the footbridge so people can read it to know what's happening. Because, people just walk by and are completely confused. And then the last is, I will reiterate, I do support what Cynthia said too, because it is quite concerning to see people going to the hospital just for attending a ceremony on a turf field. All right, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Susan. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'm going to close public comment. Does anyone have any response to any of the presenters tonight?
Mayor, I have a few
I do
responses. Okay. Should I go first? Okay. With regard to the Kingsbridge Bridge Restoration Project, we've had 2 change orders relative to that. The second one is on the agenda tonight. It's going to be discussed by the council with regard to a change order that has now been deemed necessary by the contractor for the replacement of the hand railings. We recently approved a change order for some infrastructure improvements that needed to take place at the site of the bridge. So we are probably looking for a September return. I have asked the engineering department to speak to the contractor about expediting this, but at the same time, we need to balance to make sure that this is done right and it's done safely, and both the bridge itself and the infrastructure that the bridge will be returned to is intact and ready to preserve the life moving forward. The other thing that I want to address tonight, because I anticipated that this issue would come up, is with regard to artificial turf and the excessive heat wave that we've had. With regard to the use of the turf fields during excessive heat, the village follows the NJSIAA heat participation policy that's promulgated by the state of New Jersey. The Board of Education also follows that policy. I did place copies on the table for public review tonight if anyone would like to take one of those copies on the way out. But this policy is a standard procedure It's also used by the American College of Sports Medicine. And the wet bulb globe temperature is a measure of heat stress in direct sunlight, which takes into account air temperature, humidity, wind speed, sun angle, radiant heat, and cloud cover to assess the potential for heat illness and risk levels. We also follow the best practices outlined in the policy, including the time of day and the mandatory water breaks after 15 minutes of activity for student use. Maplefield is only used for our summer camp program in the daytime when the weather, including the heat measurements outlined above, are appropriate. Evening activities are canceled in extreme heat, as was the case this past Monday night when RBSA did not use Maplefield in light of the temperatures. The situation can also change significantly after sundown to allow for safer play. I want to stress that the village and all of our affiliated sports groups are vigilant in ensuring the safety of the children and adults who use the Maplefield facility. I do want to mention, because it was stated at public comment, the comparison to the Hinchcliffe Stadium and Shedler use had to do with the Historic Sites Council approving turf at a historic location. I don't think that there's any comparison to the facility at Hinchcliffe, which if anyone has ever been there, it's a semicircle concrete structure with a turf field in the center. I can't speak to exactly what happened during the Patterson graduations, but I would not necessarily compare it as far as the open air aspect to any properties here in Ridgewood. But the comparison that was previously made by me at public meetings and also referenced in our Historic Sites Council application was the historic designation and the similarities between the two properties in that vein. That's all I have, Mayor.
And before I turn it over to the rest of the council, I just want to point out that, yes, there were many people who suffered from heat-related illnesses at Hinchcliffe Stadium. Any review of the news will show that there were many such incidents at many places where the heat wave struck that were nowhere near turf fields. And so to point that out, that it was at a turf field, it happened in more places where there wasn't a turf field than where there was. Yesterday was a dangerous heat, no matter where you were. You could have been walking on East Ridgewood Avenue. If you stayed out there for an hour and a half or probably a lot less, you may have suffered the same fate. So, and now I turn it over.
Yes, I would like to note that I read the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association policy, and there's no date on it, and there is no mention of any particular or different procedures that should be followed for artificial turf, which we know is generally hotter than grass. But it does also say that each coach, 30 minutes before every practice and every game, shall use a device to calculate the wet bulb global temperature at the site. So maybe that takes into account the actual heat generated by grass versus turf. I'm not sure. But I hope some of you have read the article that was on the front page of the New York Times on June 17th, in which they reported that several speakers on the topic of artificial turf have been sued by the manufacturers of artificial turf. And those are called SLAP suits that seek to chill the scientist's voice. And yes, there is no conclusive direct human studies on the effect of artificial turf on humans. Maybe that's because of the lobbying efforts of the manufacturers. I don't know. But I did want to read to you from that article in which Vasilis Vassiliou, the chair of the Department of Environmental Health Sciences at Yale School of Public Health, he stated, "The exposure exists, the danger exists." He's speaking to the various chemicals and off-gassing and things like that that are contained in infill and the grass blades. And he went on to say, the science isn't settled, not because there is no risk, but because we still lack human studies. So I just wanted you all to be aware of that. And somebody in one of our recent meetings said no place has banned artificial turf. The places that in fact have banned artificial turf are Boston, Sharon, Wayland, and Concord, Massachusetts. The state of New York has called a moratorium on enacting any new installations of artificial turf. Millbrae, California, enacted a private property and public property ban of plastic grass in 2023. San Marino, California, and Westport, Connecticut. So there's reason to be concerned.
Thanks, Pam. Siobhan?
Sure. So I just want to, because we have some new people, last week we had a lovely proclamation that was referenced during public comment. Prior to this council, there was no intern program here at Village Council, and we have many interns participating in local governance now. I have 7, and Ridgewood Water has a significant amount of them. It's a great way for young kids in our school system and surrounding areas to learn about local government, make an immediate impact, and they're fairly amazing. And we had a great event honoring them. Ridgewood Water participates in it, and they also, because you guys all work in town, you see the STEPS kids, they participate in it. And it's a great way for STEPS kids to get social engagement and job experience. So it's wonderful. And the phrase that I used was the interns of today will be the leaders of tomorrow. That had nothing to do with Shedler, but I do want to say part of my responsibility with these interns is to talk to them about local issues. I've talked to all of them about local issues, and Shedler's always in there. I'm not going to tell you what all of them think, but most of those kids who were here are promoting a lot of different areas. The Shade Tree kids want to plant more trees to offset everything. They want to do that. So I don't know how the intern proclamation turned into us not developing good leaders, because we talk about disagreement, we talk about we can put a turf field in and we can put more trees in. And those two things are not mutually exclusive, and the students seem to get that. I again want to thank all the kids who were here. I want to thank the community, our lovely public high school, because this council's better because those kids do that. And I really loved the phrase, so I'm hoping if they're listening again, you can be an intern today, we're accepting applications, and you can be a leader tomorrow. And that means you can have the discussion across a wider spectrum and not in absolutes. With respect to the heat, I want to say a couple things, because I've had 2 kids play in Ridgewood. There are mandatory water breaks. Everything that Keith said is true. We would cancel practices, and Hinchcliffe Stadium, most of the people on the turf were under tents and didn't suffer as much as the people outside the stadium, and it was the events of the day. But I do also, with the parallel, we talk about what we want to draw people. 10 years ago, nobody went to Hinchcliffe. The Jackals didn't play there, and turfing it and restoring it and getting it on the registry called 5 schools to say this is a wonderful place to graduate. And that, to me, is what it says about Hinchcliffe Stadium and the restoration. Doing a historic renovation of the house and doing something attractive and different next to it will generate more interest in that area. I don't know if anybody's ever been. If you've never checked out a Jackals game, it's really cool. They do everything right. It's a fraction of the cost of Major League Baseball, and everyone should check it out. I did want to say thank you to Suzanne Ruane, again, for James. He was here. And Suzanne, if you want to send us a note, I'm assuming Shedler has a neighborhood list. Maybe, Keith, we could send, here's what's going on with the bridge, just a loose, informal note, and that could be circled through the neighborhood. And lastly, I don't want to argue with council, but with the article in the New York Times, what's ironic is the man who came from Yale plays on turf. The Yale Bowl was turfed about 5 years ago. So to me, not discrediting that scientist, that university has 2 perspectives, one coming out of one place and one coming out of athletics. The Ivy League is a massive league within the United States, and they used field turf. I've been to it, and so I think it just, to me, underscores that even within an own academic institution referencing in the press, there's not consistency because the athletics department went out and restored millions of dollars worth of turf. And additionally, some towns are promoting, I sent this to Frank, at the beach where they want to do water conservation. People are putting in turf front yards because they want to conserve the water. So again, the turf is, I believe it to be safe, which is why I voted yes. And there's a conflict of opinion, but there is actually no fact that turf is dangerous. And that's it.
And I think that's it. So
Mayor,
let's-
just 2 points of
Yes, sir.
clarification. One, I do want to be very clear about the fact that this document relative to heat participation policy that's promulgated by the NJSIAA is the live document on the website. So while the deputy mayor is correct, we didn't prepare this document. This is a state document and does not have a date on it. It is the live document on the website as a resource for parents and people in the athletic community to reference. Secondly, again, this conversation about turf versus natural grass, this is a policy decision that I've said before is made by the council, and the direction we take is made by the council. I have an obligation, as does the staff here, to carry out whatever that decision is. But I just want to reassure the public that when it comes to Maple Field, which is the only turf facility under the village purview at this point in time, we are making the necessary decisions to keep our children and to keep athletic groups off of those fields when the heat is too high. And that is the charge that this administration has. We're working closely with the Parks and Recreation Department to make sure we're doing that, especially during this excessive heat. And I want the public to be rest assured that those decisions will continue to be made in the future.
all good. Let's move on, and let's go to our manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. This week, Ridgewood Water will continue the project relative to the distribution of water in the low-pressure area of West Glen Avenue in Ridgewood and primarily in Midland Park. On Friday, this coming Friday, June 27th, a concrete vault to house the new booster pumps will be installed near the Ridgewood Art Institute on West Glen Avenue. On Friday, between 12 a.m. and 10 a.m., so that's overnight into the morning, and for the majority of that time, eastbound lane of Glen Avenue will be open between Upper Boulevard and Oak Street. However, both lanes on Glen will be closed to traffic between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. Detours will be in place. Police officers will be on scene to assist commuters with the detour, and they will be there to assist drivers as necessary. The North Walnut tank removal project is nearing completion, with the excavating complete, and the lot has been filled and leveled off. The town garage property is also being finished up by the prior owner, and the periodic environmental testing will commence on both properties this summer, following all DEP guidelines. I had the opportunity to attend the Ridgewood High School graduation ceremony last Thursday, where, by the way, they had fans, water, and ice packs under every chair on the field. But I want to thank Dr. Schwartz and Mr. Nias for the invitation. It's always a unique and beautiful graduation ceremony, and I'm glad they were able to get it in between thunderstorms. Congratulations to the class of 2025. And finally, I want to congratulate Katie Fry, our Supervisor of Recreation over in the Parks and Recreation Department, on becoming the president of the New Jersey Recreation and Parks Association. This is a statewide organization that represents parks and recreation professionals throughout the state. It was an honor to swear her in 2 Fridays ago with her family looking on. Katie carries on a long family legacy of service in the recreation area, and she's going to make us all very proud here in Ridgewood as she takes on this new responsibility. Just a few announcements. As a reminder, the 2-day per week irrigation schedule is in effect. Odd-numbered addresses for irrigation are Tuesday and Saturday, and even-numbered addresses for irrigation are Wednesday and Sunday. No irrigation is allowed on Monday, Thursday, or Friday. Please remember that if it's raining, to reprogram your sprinkler system so that it does not activate during a rainstorm. And this is especially important with regard to water conservation in this excessive heat. The Guild is sponsoring Music in the Night on Friday nights through Labor Day downtown. Music in the Park will also be taking place on Saturday evenings from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. at Van Ness Square. The Ridgewood Guild is sponsoring Movies in the Park on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m., also at Van Ness Square. The Cashaw Shell Committee has announced their concert series for this summer. Concerts will take place every Tuesday and Thursday. They'll kick off at 8 p.m. They will end around 10 p.m., and that's for the months of June, July, and August. The Ridgewood 4th of July celebration will take place on July 4th, beginning with the flag raising at the train station at 9 a.m. The parade begins at 10. Fireworks and entertainment on Veterans Field will begin at 6:30, and the fireworks will go off at approximately 9:15. Come out and enjoy this annual tradition here in Ridgewood, and I especially want to thank the committee who puts the 4th of July celebration together, along with our staff here from the village who help support that event. It's always a great day in Ridgewood. The village's offices will be closed on Thursday, July 4th, and the recreation center the recycling center will also be closed. There'll be no curbside pickup that week. Chamber of Commerce is hosting their annual farmers market on Sundays from 8:30 to 2 p.m. at the train station on the west side. And our upcoming village council meetings, July 2nd is a work session, July 9th is a public meeting, August 6th is a work session, August 13th is the public meeting for August. All meetings start at 7:30 p.m. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks, Keith. Let's go to council reports. Frank, kick it off.
Thanks, Mayor. First, I want to thank the village staff that are out working in this hot weather. And I think it was great that we were able to have pickup earlier in the day. And just, we're very blessed to live here and the dedicated people that take care of it and keep this a beautiful village, and just want to thank them. So as far as my boards, I actually had 3 met since we last met, 2 on the same day. I'd like to see if anyone else has done 2 meetings the same night. And that was Open Space and Citizen Safety, both met on June 12th. Open Space, we discussed the proposed open space tax that was discussed at a previous work meeting here, and that's from going to a half penny to a full penny, and all the great things we'd be able to do with that. Also, the park walks, which are well on the way, and then just a lot of positive feedback that the attendance has been solid and that people are exposed to so many of our open spaces and parks here in town. Citizen safety, that at East Glen, I'd like to thank our signal department again for installing the radar speed feedback sign at Glen and the PSENG right away. It looks great. My daughters are already noticing that the traffic is slower, so great job on that. Staying on Glen, that we also discussed at Oak and East Glen what we can do, because Maple and Glen are both county roads, so we have to defer to the county, and the county said we could not have a lead green without a turn lane, and that intersection's too small for that, so we're looking at other options. The one we're looking at now is to put, if you're heading east on Glen, before you get to the train trestle, putting a sign there that would flash and say dangerous intersection ahead to slow down before you get to Oak. Also, with the site triangle updates, that since the last meeting, there were 9 additional properties that have come into compliance, and 2 new summonses were issued. So that means since the summonses really started in November, 43 summonses have gone out, and we're up to 39 are in compliance, which I think is fabulous. And then we also talked about North Maple and Franklin. There was a citizen complaint about how it's difficult for pedestrians to cross because there's always traffic coming from one of those 5 different places. And then finally, PRC board met last night. We had the pleasure of being at Habernacle, which again, the Habernacle farm was purchased with open space money previously, and just to see how beautiful it is. The pavilion, which isn't done, is still looking great. It's an impressive structure, and so stay tuned for when that grand opening will happen. We also talked, we talked about here, the pickleball courts. That looks like we are going to be able to go to 6 courts instead of 4. So that's in the works, and I think that we'll be discussing that at a future work session here. And then finally, that the Green Acres diversion is moving along, and Parks is submitting their part of that to Heather, and then we're just pleased that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel where that's concerned. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thanks, Frank. Siobhan.
Sure. So I had several meetings, but we had an access meeting, which was excellent, and I want to congratulate the graduating class of STEPS, which was wonderful. Access also wants to do a second round of CPR training for those of the people who serve in the village. We've been trying to get all of our committees CPR certified, and they are, if anybody else has any interest, they're into that. They also wanted to remind the community that we are going to be offering mental health CPR training for issues within disabilities and stigma-free. A lot of discussion about playgrounds again and the need for an inclusionary playground rather than just a accessible playground, which is determined largely by the floor and where it is. And I wanted to let everybody know that in July, Access will be coming here to celebrate the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. We're going to have a proclamation, and it's an actual month dedicated to that. There, since being on the council, all kidding aside, there is a month for everything, but this is big, and I hope the community and Access joins us here to celebrate a very important law that made life more accessible, not just for the members of the community, but their families. So that's huge, and we look forward to that. And Paul's going to read something super special from Access after. That's just a reminder. We also had a stigma-free meeting where we talked about the mayor's wellness campaign that's coming up in the fall, and additionally, the fact that the village is running Narcan training. For those of you who are unaware, the village does distribute Narcan. If you have young people, old people, Narcan is an important topic to be discussing. We also are going to be releasing other places where you can get that information. It's an important conversation to have with any age, but particularly for those seniors who graduated, because so many things are laced now. You need to be prepared, and I'm very proud of the program that they're going to be releasing through the health department. And a huge part of Stigma Free is talking about it. Just simply, even if you're oppositional, starting the conversation and being aware of these things. So thank you to Stigma Free, and stay tuned for these lovely upcoming community events. And thank you to our communications team who will be promoting these available things. Big shout out to the Shade Tree Commission and our interns, and a lot of the kids from the high school who woke up very early on Monday and mulched and weeded in the downtown. Not just because I'm involved, but the trees are looking great, they're healthy, we're getting in on the guarantee if they don't survive. It is a very rough life to be a street tree in the central business district. You have a lot of garbage, a lot of traffic, a lot of lack of water. No, they're the toughest of tough trees. And without this, the wells can become garbage pits and look very unattractive. So we do this every year after school graduates, and every year I have a panic attack that nobody's going to show up, but people really showed up. Our Parks Department made it happen. My family thinks it's funny I don't mulch my own yard, but I mulch downtown. So I want to just say thank you to everybody who made this happen, saves our capital investment, and makes sure so those trees are healthy. And if you see a tree that is in need of assistance, please report it, because the trees in town do have a warranty, and we want to make sure we get it. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out and say that Graydon opened this week, and if you're not a season badge holder, day passes are available. If you've always been intimidated or never checked it out, this summer is the perfect time to go do that. I know that I go with Pam in the summer. We'll be planning our field trip, and we hope to see you there. That's it.
Thanks, Siobhan.
Mayor,
Pam?
if I may, just on the Narcan announcement, the Narcan is available currently in the health department. We actually have a social media post going out about this tomorrow morning. But in addition to that, Narcan can be picked up by anyone over 14 years of age at the Acme in Midland Park, the Sycamac Pharmacy in Wyckoff, the Stop and Shop Pharmacy in Ridgewood, the Rite Aid Pharmacy in Waldwick, or the Rock Ridge Pharmacy in Glen Rock, and it's free.
Thanks, Keith.
Can Narcan be self-administered, or does it, no?
No, you'd most likely be unconscious if you were
Okay.
doing it. And just to add to the stigma discussion, the reason people want to have training on it is, one, to dispel the stigma. It's not just, a lot of things are laced now. And in addition to that, when a person, if you take the CPR training, when a person is revived, sometimes they come back pretty heavy, like it's startling to them. So there's it's a very curious thing, and like I said, when this post goes up, talk about it. Don't go in with it. Talk to your kids, talk to your parents, talk to everybody. And I'm the health department received a grant for that, which is great, And if, you know, if they run out, that would be a good thing, and we'll apply for another grant.
Okay. As you know, we are required to submit a plan for the 4th round of affordable housing by June 30th. The planning board and our ordinance working group has been working with Beth McManus, our planner, for this purpose. And she put together a draft plan, which she brought to the planning board at a special public meeting on June 12th. And on June 23rd, after some discussion, the planning board did pass a resolution to accept the fair share plan. Next, we will move on to drafting ordinances in accordance with the plan. The Central Business District Advisory Committee hosted two student presentations on, well, two students who gave us a presentation on revitalizing our downtown, and that was Arav and Hamang, and they developed a survey in which they analyzed the results. They talked to hundreds of people, and they came up with conclusions that nobody else has. For instance, if you're going to have an event downtown, what brings the most people is a food festival, not necessarily other types of events. So we learned a lot from them. Let's see, the Special Improvement District Steering Committee met, and most recently we were working on bylaws for the suggested District Management Corporation. I also wanted to tell you about the Rotary Club, the Ridgewood AM Rotary Club. We were supposed to be painting the fireboxes in Ridgewood, as we have done for the last 2 or 3 years, and we got rained out twice, so we're going for the fall. The Dunham Trail between Spring and Grove Street will be closed from now for the next month because Ridgewood Water is doing a bank stabilization to cover the water main that they have there, which has, due to erosion of the banks, become exposed. So it will not be, Dunham Trail will not be open to the public for this month. Graduation was just beautiful, and it was really so nice to hear the kids speak and hear about their accomplishments. They're just an amazing group of students every year. Let's see. Oh, I did want to say, the Central Business District Advisory Committee has an opening for a resident position. If you know anybody who is interested in our discussions and our work, it's not showy work. It's kind of interstitial. We are very much in the background. We advise the council on important matters, and it's very interesting to be part of that. So if you know anybody, our opening is until what, June 30th? Would you consider extending that? Okay. To say what, July 15th?
Yeah, I was just doing that date so that possibly we could have appointed someone in July. However, if we do July 15th, it'll be an appointment in August,
Yeah.
so.
Let's do that. Let's extend it
15th.
to July 15th.
Okay.
And in addition, Green Ridgewood and Green Team also have one vacancy each. Green Ridgewood is very active on a number of environmental fronts, and we also advise the council, and the Green Team is a subset that meets with the Green Ridgewood group, but their specific jurisdiction is getting us accredited with Sustainable Jersey. Let's see. Oh, I also had the pleasure to give a tour of the Oakcroft development on Ridge Road this weekend. It is close to my heart, and it's a wonderful, I think, historic development, though it doesn't have national registration, and if you haven't been there, just drive by. It's so unique, and I'll probably be giving the tour again in the fall or next spring. And I think that's all I have. Oh, I know what. Green Ridgewood also just reopened their brand-new website. If you go to greenridgewoodnj.org, you'll find a number of informative articles, events, and things to do, like Project 1,000 Acres, how to install a rain barrel. There are videos. There's information on solar power. It's a really good website, and I highly recommend it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. The beauty of going last is that everyone else has talked about all these wonderful things that have been done. Before I echo some of those remarks, because I think that these events are so important, I want you to take note of the fact that this is a working council. These people don't just show up at meetings and make decisions. They're out there mulching tree beds, giving tours, going to committee meetings to discuss and work through issues and make our community better. This is, whoever characterized this as a part-time gig would have problems with the Department of Labor. This is a working council, and I am so proud and impressed with every single one of them. And so I will echo Frank's remarks about our village staff, that they never cease to amaze me, from Pride Day when they scrambled to get a dozen tents because the rain was coming, to the day that they worked out in the heat. And, you know, I am always impressed with them. High school graduation, for those of you who have not actually sat there and witnessed it, let me tell you something. Everyone's high school graduation is very special. Ours is a level above. It is breathtaking, and the project graduation that follows it, which is really a dance and a party. It's actually a safety measure disguised as a dance and a party, because it keeps our kids safe on a night when maybe they would get a little too happy and have a little too much fun and maybe get into trouble. So I love high school graduation. Mulch Monday, let me tell you something. This was, look, I was in the Central Business District for 30 years, and I got to tell you, the difference that mulching those tree wells make, because many of our stores are corporate stores, many of our shop owners really don't see outside of the four corners of their store. Gary Colasera is an exceptional exception to that. He's with us tonight. So I want to thank everybody who pitched in. Graden Pool, I'm not a country club kind of guy, but I've stopped by a few because I've been invited. There is no country club that is more beautiful than our own Graden Pool. It is a breathtaking place. We are so fortunate to live in this wonderful village. And with that, we will go on with our
Nope.
regular.
Nope.
Oh,
Nope.
oh, excuse me. I didn't forget, I was faking. So we received a wonderful letter from Jamie Davis, who is a Ridgewood resident and the chairperson of the Ridgewood Access Committee. I have worked with Jamie on the sensory-friendly dinners, which are for families with children who have sensory issues and have difficulty going out to dinner to a crowded, loud, perhaps well-lit restaurant. And she wrote a letter in appreciation of what our own firefighters put together that I'm going to read for you, that is wonderfully touching and just reminds us what great people we have as firefighters. Dear Chief Judge, on behalf of the Ridgewood Access Committee, thank you to all the members of Ridgewood Professional Firefighters, FMBA Local 47, for their partnership with our committee in sponsoring the highly successful sensory-friendly touch-a-truck and barbecue at the Ridgewood Fire Headquarters on June 21st. In particular, we are incredibly grateful for the efforts of Lieutenant Ryan Romero and firefighter TJ Benintende in putting on the event, as well as the members of the A Platoon for making it such a success the day of. The event was a wonderful opportunity for both members of our special needs community and the community at large to experience the fire station in an accessible way. We are so fortunate to live in a community with such generous and caring first responders. We look forward to continuing this partnership with events in the future. Warmly, Jamie Davis. These are the kinds of things that make you smile, because our firefighters they're just really good people, and they really care, and they just want to make it good for everybody. And I will tell you, there has not been a sensory-friendly dinner, and I have attended them all, where our firefighters and our police officers are not represented. They're at every single one, and they know, and they show up in uniform because they know the kids are so fascinated by the uniforms, and it means so much to the families that these people come out to support them, because it's not always an easy road. So, Jamie, thank you very much. Chief, Judge, and your crew, you lead an exemplary group of people. Did I forget anything else? Just checking. Okay, and with that, we have a presentation by Stuart Copperweiss, who is our consultant for the Special Improvement District Feasibility Study. And we have several members of the committee here, and I invite you all up to make this presentation. So please join us here. Yeah, you're coming up. Right there. Pam and I both served on this Special Improvement District committee, and I want to take a moment to introduce the members of the committee. Bill Gilsenin, a local realtor who's lived in Ridgewood all his life. Nina Milanos, who is very involved in our downtown and is a local landlord. Stacy Tsapatsaris, again, a local landlord who also lives in town, raised her children here. Gary Colasaire, who has been in business in Ridgewood 46 years? Yep. Which is a feat unto itself. I want to thank you all, because we've spent a couple of years on this thing, putting it all together, and there have been many, many meetings and a lot of time spent, and these are all very, very busy people who have their own businesses to attend to, who spent the time for our community to help make our central business district better. And we were led by our consultant, Stuart Copperweiss, who has done this in many communities, and we were fortunate to have his expertise with us. And we had many, many important discussions. We didn't always agree amongst ourselves, but we always came to consensus. And so with that, Stuart, I turn it over to you. Stuart, could you just turn is there a green light on?
Green light.
And I will say, for anyone who comments, please, we are working on our acoustic system. We need you to be close to the mic.
Hello, hello.
There you go, and that's the difference. Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening. Again, my name is Stuart Copperweiss. Thank you, Mayor, council members, Deputy Mayor, staff, and guests. I appreciate the opportunity to be before you regarding the feasibility study that was, issued by the council back in October of 2023. I'm here today to answer any questions regarding the feasibility study and the report that was put together. I apologize, I did not know that this was going to be a presentation. I just thought it was a conversation. So I don't have anything to present, but I am here available to answer any questions that you have. As the mayor mentioned, several of the steering committee members are here. As far as improvement districts go, there are many. There are over 100 in the state of New Jersey. One of my favorite sayings is that across the entire country, they're known as business improvement districts. But as you know, we live in New Jersey and we're special. So consequently, the statute calls them special improvement districts. But everywhere else, if you go, they're not SIDs, they're BIDs. So just in case you need to add any education on that particular issue. There's many of them, as I mentioned, in the state of New Jersey. The Ridgewood Village Alliance, which is what is being recommended as a district management corporation, which according to the state statute needs to be created. And that would be done vis-a-vis an ordinance, which we will discuss in future meetings. I believe Pam is scheduling that for introduction. A draft ordinance has been sent over already for review, and we'll be working on that at the same time.
Stuart, forgive me for interrupting, and I know you weren't prepared to make a presentation, but if you could just take a moment to describe for those listening and those in attendance what a special improvement district is, what its goals are, and how it is funded.
Okay, I will.
I know you can speak off the top of your head.
Well, basically, a special improvement district is a not-for-profit organizational structure that works with businesses and property owners in a particular region. The district itself is defined by the steering committee and makes a recommendation as to whether or not, and the question was, and how, in terms of Ridgewood, should it be a single corridor? Should it just be a downtown area, the central business district, or should it be the entirety of the village? And I always call the villages or towns, whatever they are, because every town is different. I call them municipalities, so that's why it's just very familiar for me. This way there's no mistaking of what it is. All municipalities, like I said, they have several of them. What this group has recommended is that they work on a variety of different programs: marketing and branding, economic development, and capital and visual improvements. From that, they put together a mission statement, which states basically that the mission of the Alliance is to energize, enhance the business environment of the village through marketing, branding, economic development, advocacy, and select capital improvements. It is committed to promoting and maintaining the village as a prime destination for visitors, residents, organizations, and businesses. And how that works is that the Ridgewood Village Alliance, or otherwise known as RVA, board will set its priorities. They will then hire an executive director or manager who will execute all the plans. And committee members of the board will be volunteers to support the mission. And all business and property owners and residents are available or can participate in all of the organizational structures that are available. Again, the question was asked, what makes sense for Ridgewood? Should it be the entire municipality, such as Princeton? Should it be a single corridor, such as Jersey City Central Avenue? Or should it be a regional area, such as Exchange Place in Jersey City? And the committee is recommending that it actually be the entire village. And who would be included would be all what is zoning terms as 4A properties with commercial retail, including mixed use and rental apartments, 4Cs, which are commercial residential units with 4 units or more, and specific not-for-profits, 15Fs, that would be reclassified to be included in the district. How the funds are obtained is basically through an assessment that is being given to, or assessment that is placed upon all the property owners within the district, and it's being recommended that there would be a total of about 355 properties. There are basically 2 zones: a Tier 1 zone, which is in the central business district, and Tier 2 are all the outliers. If you looked at the report, there are maps of all those things in the report showing each one. The District Management Corporation, which is known as a DMC, is established as the operating entity by the village vis-a-vis an ordinance, and that is done by the ordinance to adopt a improvement district and name the District Management Corporation Ridgewood Village Alliance. All properties in the village of 4A, 4Cs, and 15Fs are included in the boundaries of the improvement district. It doesn't mean that they're going to be assessed. All the things that you saw in the report are recommendations. None of that is going to be set into stone until the board is actually convened. there's the corporation is set forth, and the bylaws are put together, and then the board will meet to create a budget. Once that budget is created, at that point in time, they will then create the assessment by the tax assessor's office, who will then schedule that as part of the ordinance known as Schedule A. And that's it. So basically, my conclusion, or in closing, is that SID is one of the most qualified mechanisms for local property and business owners to work together with their local government. It is self-determination for the future. It's their own collective destiny, and it makes it possible for members of the community to control the economic revitalization of the village of Ridgewood. I thank you. If any members have any comments, they're more than welcome. We worked on the report for many months. We've been meeting for over 15 months. We continue to keep meeting, and we will continue to work with you and fulfilling the desires of the committee, which is to create an improvement district.
And before I turn this over to the council, a couple things. First, I want to point out that this has absolutely been Pam Perrin's project. She led it. She lived it. She edited every word in every document. She made sure that everything was going smoothly, even on the days when it didn't go as smoothly. And so
It always went smoothly.
we. I'm so sorry. If I could just continue. I want to point out that the assessment, this is funded by the property owners.
Correct.
There is absolutely no impact on any resident taxpayers. I will point out that the 4 members of the committee who are here today are all property owners in the Central Business District. So what that is essentially saying is that they support an additional assessment to their property so that it can improve the Central Business District. They are what's referred to as stakeholders. And I'm going to put you all on the spot. I'm going to ask you each to just give us a couple sentences as to why you support this special improvement district. Bill, you know I'm going to start with you.
So, green light is on. So I think one of the things we have to keep in mind, the business
A
environment.
little closer to the mic, Bill.
The business environment in downtown Ridgewood has been changing for many years. Initially, we thought the malls would be an issue. Now we have e-commerce. I keep on telling everybody on recycling night, drive around town and look at the cardboard boxes. Every one of those boxes is a sale that should have taken place in downtown Ridgewood. Ridgewood has a lot of great things. The school system, when people come to look for a home in Ridgewood, they first come and say, we got a great school system, we have great supporting values. But they all love the downtown. They love driving up and down Ridgewood Avenue. Real estate agents love driving people up and down Ridgewood Avenue. It's really a showplace. But what's happened over the years is we're running into vacancies, we're having problems getting tenants. Each one of our businesses is operating individually. With the SID, we will have one group that will help market the entire town. One group that will help get things done, the beautification of the downtown. One of the things we talked about is do we have a group snow removal? You know, right now you go from, say, Oak Street all the way down to Maple Avenue, you've got 90 stores, you've got 90 people shoveling a sidewalk. You know, why doesn't the SID go out and just get one person to do it? There's a lot of things to be done. There's a safety issue there. I think the marketing is going to be very important. Also the planning. What do we do going forward? Do we have, retail studies done? What's working, what doesn't work? What do we do when the post office closes up? What do we do when the movie theater leaves? What do we do when we have, group stores going out? So this group would be planning and have basically a master plan, strategic plan. Here's how we would address it. Also, in the SID, there would be the ability to have grants done for store improvements, for markups. There would also be assistance to tenants. The other thing, and I deal with this every day, is when we have new businesses coming into town, they don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. They start with, talking to the landlord. They start with negotiating. But then we have to deal with the building department, who, by the way, does a great job. They protect the homeowners. They protect everybody. But it's a specialty. You have to know how to deal with building department. you've got engineering, you've got fire, you've got police, you've got health. Every business comes in, that is a monstrous task for them to take over. The SID would be able to assist them in doing that. That would allow us to get more tenants to come in. So there's a myriad of benefits that can come from this, and it would benefit the entire town. And also benefit the residents. One of the things that I always say is right now, all of these businesses pay taxes. 64% of your taxes go to the school system. These retail businesses cannot use the school system. So we are underwriting the school system. So we need to have a strong central business district. The stronger the central business district, the better it is for the rest of the town. So those
Bill?
are some of the basics.
Thank you. There's nobody I know who knows the Central Business District as well as you do. Nina, you are one of the larger property owners in town. Give us your thoughts.
I hope it goes through. I just think it would help stimulate activity and bring more people in, and having more events and more, more activity.
Great. Thank you very much. Stacy, you serve on many of our committees. You are so deeply involved in this community. You are also, you and your family, significant property owners in town. Give us your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I have to say, for someone that didn't know he was going to do a presentation, you did a pretty good job, Stu.
Thank you.
And it's hard to follow Bill, because he did cover a lot of ground, and it was very eloquently said. One thing I have to say is this is important to us. I mean, we did have a lot of healthy discussion and debate. I think because of it, it brought us together. Bringing landlords together in a room and having these healthy conversations, discussions, debates is something we haven't done before. So that alone was worth it, even if we were to stop here. But we shouldn't stop here, because change is imminent. Life is constantly changing. If we stay where we are and we don't try something else, we're going to be left behind. All these decades, people assumed we had a SID. We never did. Everybody thought we had one. But that's because of the hard work, the sweat, and the effort of the Chamber of Commerce, the Ridgewood Guild, the CBDAC. So many people might say, well, what happens to the CBDAC? We will have succeeded the moment CBDAC dissolves. That's the wish of everyone on the CBDAC. It is basically taking that volunteer organization and funding it with the efforts and the camaraderie of landlords coming together. Because at the end of the day, when one business fails, when one vacancy fails, it affects everybody. I mean, look at the most recent addition, Tate Bakery, which happens to be Nina's property. We're at a point now that we're looking to put a possible pedestrian, crosswalk there, because it's so busy. I mean, think about how we mobilize that side of East Ridgewood Avenue. This is a great story, but it doesn't stop there. We have others to fill, and we also have to do a little bit more mindful filling of the stores, because I think we all can agree that we're not happy about all the barbershops with the bright LED lights necessarily. Maybe we do have a little too many cafes. Maybe we do have a lot of service industries. The bottom line is this: the mall is not our competition. We have nothing to fear with the mall. Summit has one of the best malls a mile away from them, and Summit is going crazy gangbusters with all their stores. They're a beautiful environment, and they're all doing very well. So we need to stop blaming the malls. We need to stop blaming Amazon, because you know what's happening? The people that went completely to websites are now starting to open storefronts. There's bricks and mortars opening up everywhere because consumers are seeing what they're getting from Amazon, and it doesn't look like what they saw on the screen. So the websites will be there, Amazon will be there, but people want the experience, and that's what we need to bring to Ridgewood: experiential shopping. And what this will do, and I'm sorry, I will give it to you.
You're doing great.
What this will do is effectively get us out of our little individual landlord silos and make us all communicate through our executive director And when somebody is coming in, you might want to warn them, you know, I know you want to open XYZ, but there's another 3 of them that are going to be coming in here. And that will be healthy for all of us, because at the end of the day, if we're opening the same uses and they're competing with each other, that's not going to help us. So let's bring in the arcades. Let's bring in the breweries. Whatever we think is going to bring in activity, that's what we should do. And there's no other way to do it other than having one person that's getting all the data at the top, right? Through the Ridgewood Guild, through the Chamber of Commerce. And we are doing this all on volunteer basis right now. Like, what happens if Joan decides she doesn't want to run the Chamber of Commerce? There's so much work that one person does. We're very vulnerable. So this is just the logical next step. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Stacy. And now, the man with almost 50 years' experience, which, by the way, I mean, that's an example that I don't know how many people can follow that. Gary, give us your thoughts.
I hope many can, but number one, looking around the room, I may be the oldest one in the room. I remember in the 50s, the 60s, going into the 70s, and then I look at Ridgewood today, and Ridgewood needs a bit of help to bring people into town. As we started talking about a SID, Barbara and I went down to Cape May for our anniversary, which was in October. And I haven't been down to Cape May in 40 years. And it was adorable. And I went into the Fudge store, and I said to the guy behind the counter, hey, do you belong to a SID or a BID? And he said, well, yeah, we have a sit down here. And I started to talk to him about it, and he explained what he does in the city and how that town, even though it's a short town and it's half the size of Ridgewood, how immaculate it is. And you want to go back. Oh, Ridgewood used to be there, and it was a town to come to. So that's why I come behind the city. We need to see it come back and bring in the stores. We will explain an awful lot, Stacy. So we got to get the stores and make them magic for people to come to Ridgewood first when they come to downtown.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, everyone. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to the person who really was our fearless leader in all of this, Pam.
It is wonderful to see that we've finally brought together the landlords in a group that talks to each other. You didn't have that before. We did have the Chamber of Commerce, great organization, and the Guild, another wonderful contributor to our town. And they have been on our steering committee as well. They've had their representatives working with us. And we don't want to step on their toes. They are doing great work, but they are volunteer organizations. You can voluntarily become a member. They don't represent all the businesses. Not only does a SID represent all the businesses, but it also provides a steady source of income. Now, the Chamber of Commerce and the Guild, their income is going to vary, but here there's something to rely on to help the landlords and the tenants maintain a vital presence. And for instance, one of the landlord's responsibilities that they pass along to tenants is maintaining tree wells. Well, they didn't get to it. And we have to have our teenagers volunteering to mulch the tree beds.
Did you just call me a teenager?
I was thinking the same thing.
Well,
Not mine.
but, you know, it's not a path forward to just rely on volunteers. They're wonderful, but we need something of a more sustained nature. And in the statute that the legislature put forth in the 1980s, they describe this program as self-help, and that's exactly what it is. It is the landlords who will, and the tenants who will benefit from this are the ones raising the money. And there are 17 specific powers that the statute gives the Special Improvement District. And the one that attracts me the most is they can recruit new businesses to fill vacancies in and to balance the business mix of the district. We would all love to see more diversity in our retail, and this is the way to accomplish that. And they can also, because this is a nonprofit organization, they can accept donations, and if we can get 501c3 status, those donations can be tax-free. And I think that's very attractive, especially, well, for testamentary devices. If I want to put in my will that I want the downtown to survive and give a donation, I can do that. Whereas you can't do it otherwise. This is the only animal that the legislature has created to allow the government and the business community to work together. And the council's role here is to pass an ordinance to allow the SID to do what it needs to do. And once a year, they come before the village council and present their budget. And that's the only input that the council has. And in your packets, I've given you at the back the resolution. What we're here for tonight is to accept this report, to accept and adopt the report. It is not the final word, as Stuart pointed out. There's still an ordinance to be drafted and a district management corporation to set up, and the trustees will decide what the work plan will be, what the deliverables will be, and what the budget will be. Our steering committee has worked hard to come up with proposals of a work plan and budget, but it's not the final word. So with that, if you could look at the resolution at the back of your packet.
We're not at the resolution yet, so I don't.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to ask you to vote, but if there are changes you think need to be made.
Well, I think we should talk about why we're here today first.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
First, thanks for all you being here and all your passion and things. And I want to just break this into small pieces because you're all immersed in it, and so like you dove in the deep end, and I think for a lot of people that are trying to wrap their heads around it, it'd be good to just kind of walk through everything. So what we're here, and when we keep referring to the document, it's this big giant book of work that you guys put together. And so step one is what we're here for today, is as the council to say, yeah, we dig this. Is that correct, Stuart?
Step one is the report itself, is accepting the report. Correct.
Correct. And I'm going to just do a lot of back and forth
Good.
so that I don't ramble. And so in the report, like it started with stakeholders where you gave them a survey of what they thought they would want, correct?
Well, we did do a survey for the stakeholders themselves. We did actually several surveys.
And then the second one was with the steering committee.
Well, the first one we did was with the steering committee, and then the second one we did was with the stakeholders themselves who attended the presentation on the feasibility of creating a improvement district. And then we took all of those survey results and put them together and matched them up against what we put together as the work plan, and then made changes based upon that input.
And what I found interesting was how closely that those two surveys overlapped.
Correct.
Which showed that there was consistency among what was needed with the SID.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you read it that closely.
So
Because most people wouldn't catch that.
And then, so then you met, like you said, over 15 plus months as this
Correct.
group to put together what should be. And again, as a feasibility study, nothing in here is written in stone, correct?
Right. All this is a report based upon the steering committee's recommendation to create the improvement district, and the report itself has their recommendations and findings, such as the budget, the assessment rates, et cetera, et cetera. All of that gets finalized once a budget is introduced to
Let me
the
stay at
council.
let's stay at step one, just what it
That's
is,
step,
okay?
right, that's step 3.
Yeah. And then so, like you talked about the budget, and what that is it's a hypothetical budget based on a proposed, but not in writing, of how if everyone's assessed, how much money it would have and how that could be spent. Like how much would go to marketing, how
Correct.
much would go, or correct? Okay.
Correct, right, but what you have in the report, again, are recommendations only. Your voting on the report is just accepting what the report findings are. You're not voting on the budget, the ordinance, assessments, anything of that nature.
And that's, so it's, like if we said it in a nutshell, what we're voting today on is yes, we need to have a SID in Ridgewood.
Correct.
Then step 2, and this is where the ordinance came in that Pam's talking about, we'll be back up here again to discuss what the ordinance should look like.
Correct.
That will then give the SID the legal power to be a non-for-profit that will have its own organization that can steer the businesses of downtown, correct?
Right. The state statute requires that an ordinance be introduced by the municipality, the village, and the governing body in order to create the improvement district. In that same ordinance, you are also naming the district management corporation, and attached to the ordinance is what is known as Schedule A, which is a listing of all the properties in the district.
And the reason there has to be an ordinance is because the assessment is essentially a tax specific to the businesses, and it's to give the legal power to tax them, correct?
Yes and no, and the only reason I'm going to change that.
Some use the word tax, yeah.
It's the word tax. I think
Yeah.
we had this conversation. It's an assessment. A tax is a completely different according to state statute and to council.
And then once we vote on that ordinance, then the SID organization will be created, and then they will decide on how that they will spend the budget. But before they can spend it, they have to, like we go through our normal budget up here, they have to present it to us to make sure that we're in agreement with it.
Right. The third element of that is the actual budget itself. The organization, the District Management Corporation, the Ridgewood Village Alliance, created by the ordinance, once it's up and running and functioning, it then has to put together a budget. And when they put together the budget, that budget has to be introduced by the governing body, and there will have to be a public hearing on that, and then it gets voted upon.
And 2 other points I just want to bring out, what the mayor said to confirm that the Ridgewood taxpayer, this doesn't impact them at all, correct?
The residential taxpayer is not impacted except for the positiveness of the downtown, but
And then-
not financially.
And then what said over here about that because it's a non-for-profit, we can then apply for grants that would be
Correct.
specific to the downtown.
The goal is for the organization to become what's known in IRS terms as 501c3, a not-for-profit corporation.
And then it was kind of said by several people of the advantage of marketing Ridgewood as a whole. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, that was one of the things that, quite frankly, was why the conversation was had in the beginning as to who should be included. But I always like to look at it, and we as a team looked at it as who should be excluded. So in other words, all of the Village of Ridgewood should be part of this marketing program that will be put together. They'll hire a marketing team, and they'll bring in a variety of different aspects of what they should be looking at and how to market all of Ridgewood, not just the core business district, but all of the surrounding areas as well. So all of the businesses in the Village of Ridgewood will have the opportunity to participate at a very nominal cost.
Excellent. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Councilman, and I appreciate you reading the report as well as you did, and the conversations you and I had in terms of the questions that you brought up as well. I think it was very, very well taken. Thank you.
Thanks.
More than just a B guy.
And Frank, we're not voting tonight.
Right.
Siobhan, you
Yes.
have questions?
Yes, I do.
You teenage monster, you.
So I'm going to start with a couple things. First of all, Gary's tree wells are the best. They're the
Always,
prettiest. Everyone,
always.
the kids comment on it all the time. And I do want to say, to echo, Tate is just amazing. It's amazing, and it kind of, in all these discussions, because I too have been around like Ridgewood my whole life, and the transition of retail. I remember when retail stores forget about duality of stores. If I was selling a brand, Pam couldn't, and then certain vendors would get mad, like if I were selling it. So I really do think all of you have done such a great job of keeping our vibrant town charming and like mostly vibrant, and this is what you need to get to full vibrancy. So thank you for everything. I mean, Mr. Gilsanian, I know you've done a lot of work, and you guys are awesome for putting this all together. I had some fairly technical questions from my read, just
Okay.
because I'm trying to, okay. So starting from the beginning, because it's going to be branded, have we checked that that name's available? Like, have we legally made sure, because it seems like we're wedded to it?
No.
Should we do, can we do that? So I think if you guys like the Ridgewood Village Alliance and you're going to be branding this, we should secure the domain name and do some of that. Just, it's incidental.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one. And then two, maybe we should loosely look at some graphic design donations for a logo and a branding to say.
I'm sorry, what's that?
If RidgewoodVillageAlliance.com is going to be the proper name.
Correct.
And it's going to be associated with the entity, we should have our lawyer, Matt Rogers, make sure that it's available, right?
Right, no, I understood
Okay.
that. It was the second part I
And then maybe
didn't
we could
hear you.
work with some of our graphic designers who are local to come up with some concepts of what the branding
Oh,
would look
absolutely.
like. Okay, so, I mean, I think it's
That
so
go- That
great.
goes without saying, Councilperson.
Okay.
Because you want to utilize local talent as much as possible.
Are we ready for that? Because this seems like an exciting idea, and we should
Yes.
start, okay.
Once the ordinance is introduced and on public hearing on that, and it becomes a district management corporation and a legal entity, at that point in time, it can then start hiring people
Great.
to do whatever it is, volunteer-wise
No,
or...
I'm good with that. I just want to make sure if we're wedded to the name, that we do the search and make sure the name is actually legally available. Can you do
Yes.
that, Matt?
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, I think it's not an easy thing to find out about that. It's just that they can all be done simultaneously.
Okay.
I mean, it's not as if you have to wait for one to get the other one done. You can work on
No,
that.
no,
Right.
it's filing the certificate of incorporation, and we have
Right.
the 3 individuals who are going to do so. We're working on that process right now.
Well, those are so then, okay, so going back to the establishment. So we establish it by ordinance, but then do we have to separately register? I've been on an inception board for a charity. Is that our articles of incorporation for the 501c3? Because
Well,
if you're a charity, you have to be a charity for like a year before you're recognized. Are we doing that, or is the board doing it itself?
The board is doing that themselves.
Okay.
Actually, we're in the process of doing it now, in terms of once the organization is legal in terms of the ordinance, at that point in time, a certificate of incorporation will be filed with the state to gather both the name and then utilizing a CPA firm locally to put together the 501c3 paperwork
And
to
are
the
we-
IRS.
So we're doing that now?
We're not exactly right now, in the next 2 months.
Okay, because it'll take about
It's-
a year
well,
to be
that's-
fully.
Oh, no, we should be fully operational and organizationally and running by the fall.
Even with the IRS?
Yes. It doesn't take more than a couple of weeks,
Okay.
if that.
And then when that happens, you're going to have bylaws. Are we going to see the bylaws here?
Yes.
Oh, you can if you want to, but it's not necessary. The bylaws are the organizational structure alone.
Well, the
And it's
only
not,
reason-
they're not voted upon by the council.
So the only, and this is my last question, because I'm trying to visualize how it'll all happen, is with the bylaws and the representation, the 3 separate classes, the 4A and the 4C and the 15F, are you going to have representation on the future board from all of those areas?
Yes.
Great. Those are my only questions.
And I just want to comment that the beauty of this is that the council, once we empower this organization, then turns over operational control to this committee, which is really, really important. That being
Correct.
said, the council does retain the obligation and responsibility to approve the budget each year. So
Right.
that is the one thing that this council will always do, not look at their bylaws, not look at, at lots of odds and ends, but we will look at their budget.
And additionally,
So I just, like, again, I read the whole packet, so I just want to be clear, though, if we're putting a tax on people, I just wanted to make sure that they had a place at the table, because that's a question we get all the time, because the region, so this must make, so if the region was just Main Street, then it would just be the owners. I just want to make sure, you know, we have the 15F category, it's small, but it should be there.
There should be representation from all the areas.
Great.
And at the same time, Mayor, you just mentioned something, and I just lost that, but the budget, what I wanted to say is that according to the statute, a member of the governing body must be on the board
That's my
of
next
the directors, trustees. So I'll let you guys decide who that may be.
Well, here,
Pam.
it seems pretty obvious. Does anybody else have any questions or any comments about this?
It's awesome, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
And thank everybody. The steering committee has really, you know, we've been meeting on a bi-monthly basis, sometimes every other week or even sooner than that. And, you know, we meet I try to keep meetings under about an hour. Sometimes they're an hour and a half. But we're doing everything, so thank you.
I'm aiming to bring the ordinance before you in August.
Terrific.
Perfect.
I think we were talking about a actual discussion about that in July?
In front of the steering committee?
No, in front of
The council.
council. The schedule that I thought we were with you, but maybe we're wrong, was July 2nd would be a discussion at the work session for the ordinance,
I'll shoot for July 2nd.
okay? And then July 9th would be the introduction of the ordinance, so the hearing could be on August 13th.
If you're going to do that, I need the ordinance by tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
Well,
why it's
okay,
very
well-
short notice.
Okay, well, I gave you, you should have no problem with the ordinance that I sent to you. It's,
Well, you know I'm a nitpicker.
okay, I know, but it has been reviewed by at least 10 different attorneys.
Pam will work to get it to Heather immediately.
Okay, and if not, then it just...
It just bumps it a month.
It's
So
just another month
Let's see
later.
what we can do. Great.
Okay.
Thank you all so much.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate
thank you.
your time.
Any
and all of your
questions?
efforts.
You all have my phone number, and, you know, please reach
Yep.
out to me at any
Great.
time. Thank you,
Now on
have a
speed
great
dial.
evening. Sorry?
Thank you.
Now
Yep.
on speed dial.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Safe home.
Okay, thank you.
So through you, Mayor, to the Deputy Mayor, this resolution that's at the end of the presentation tonight, that's going to be on for July 9th for adoption?
Yeah, right,
Right.
for July 9th.
Okay, so there's consensus for Heather to add this to the July 9th meeting for formal action.
So will we be potentially adopting both the resolution?
No, you'd
and-
be introducing, if the time frame that was outlined here comes to pass, you'd be introducing the ordinance the same night you adopt this
That's what I
resolution,
wanted.
which
Good.
should not be problematic.
Just want to make sure. Good.
Correct.
Let's go to our regular agenda.
Thank you all.
Take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no items under Ridgewood Water or parking this evening, so we'll move right to page 2, which is budget. The first is a memorandum from our village engineer, Chris Rudishauser, regarding the SCADA system at the Water Pollution Control Facility. He is recommending the award of contract to Emerson Process Management, who's a sole source vendor for supplying SCADA components. The proposal is in the amount of $28,837.60, and this will be an operational upgrade to the SCADA system. It'll allow for periodic system updates, software, and software support for our staff. This is the same company that we utilize for the SCADA system at Ridgewood Water.
Questions? Nope. Let's go.
Okay, the next item is also from engineering. This is for the New Jersey Department of Transportation Municipal Aid 2024 grant for the resurfacing of South Pleasant Avenue, along with enhanced improvements for the disabled. Village received bids on Wednesday, July 11th. There were 7 registered plan holders, 5 submitted bids. Bids ranged from $413,102 to a high of $483,438. The low bid received was from Smith Sonde of Wallington, New Jersey. This is going to be funded through the 2025 capital budget in addition to the grant, and Chris is recommending the award to the apparent low bidder in the amount of $413,102. A portion of this, as mentioned, will be covered by a $207,710 grant, and we'd like to move forward with this project this year.
Everybody good?
I just wanted to point out that this is the project where the students came and asked for a bike lane on South Pleasant, and this project will be when that gets painted.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, those recommendations will be incorporated in this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
Next is a vehicle purchase for a Groundsmaster 5900. This is for the Parks and Recreation Department. This is a resolution for purchase of said equipment through the Bergen County Cooperative. This is for, the vendor is Store Tractor of Branchburg, New Jersey. The current mower that this mower will replace has been in service for 12 years here in the village, and it's reached the end of its useful life. Purchase price for this vehicle is not to exceed $133,265.62, and the money has been appropriated through the capital budget.
Everybody good?
Can we, go ahead.
This is, it's not apparent from this document that we have before us, but it is, I spoke to Nancy Begos, this is actually a mower.
Yes.
And it's a colossally expensive mower. I would urge the administration to take a look at the automated mowers, because I know that our maintenance crew is very lean, and if we can save them some man-hours, I just think we should look into it.
And it should be noted that this is rideable, which is why it's considered a vehicle.
We do have any, I'm not sure if you're on it, but there was an email with the alternate driverless one. I know that it was circulated for discussion, but I don't know, were you on it?
I've
I can look for
emailed.
it.
I don't know if that would have been for this, because this, I want to say, is like 17
Right.
feet across, and it would be too dangerous to not have somebody manning it, as we're on a field that giant with kids. I don't think that's, it
that
would
was-
still require manpower, because people would have to watch it, and
The automated ones are electronically set, like
right.
by a
But if
fence.
it's people are on
and
it, on the field, I mean, it's like this
It
thing-
runs at night. It cuts at night.
This is mostly for Vets Field, that's why it's so big, and to have a mower that large, I think would be dangerous to try to find something that's
And Pam, we
automated.
did, there's, maybe
No, they're
Frank's.
small.
Yeah,
They're small.
But
They
this
just take
one
hours
has to be
operate.
large because of how big Vets is. Like that's why when I talked to Matt, he was like, it would take forever if you had a smaller mower.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the Groundmaster.
I'm going to vote in favor of this.
Yeah.
But we should also be considering.
For
way-
other instances.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you
And,
were-
and I'm gonna pull, Matt and Andrula, there was a suggestion, it may have come from Fields, but we do have, I'm gonna send it, if you, I know I was on it, so only one of us could be on it, maybe it was Frank, I'll send it to you. He did, he gave us feedback on some of it.
Yeah, I didn't see that either.
I'm gonna find it, and I'm gonna send
I
it.
haven't seen it.
I can tell you through you, Mayor, I could say with certainty that it's been discussed as a
Oh, it
possible
has?
purchase.
Okay.
They want to make sure that the equipment is durable and that it has a useful purpose here in Ridgewood, depending on what area it would be utilized. But Matt and his team, under Nancy's leadership, has been looking at this since the beginning of the year.
I was just going to say before we vote yes, can we see if we could get any T-shirts or hats that say Groundmaster 5900 on it?
We'll see if we can get you some swag, Councilman.
Thank you.
I think one for Frank is enough.
The next item on the agenda is from the Police Department, recommended by Lieutenant Chuck. This is for the purchase of equipment and service to equip police vehicles. He is making a recommendation to award a contract to Winter Ford of Cherry Hill, New Jersey, to purchase, install, and repair vehicles purchased in 2025 to affix emergency police lights, safety equipment, and other equipment that needs to be installed in the various police cars. The intention of the police department is to take usable equipment out of retired police cars and install them where appropriate on new vehicles. In the last 6 years, they have undertaken that program, and it has been successful. This will be through a state contract award not to exceed $140,000, and the funds are contained in the 2025 capital budget and various operating accounts of the police department.
Questions?
Nope.
Do we have to bring the cars to them, or do they come here to make the repairs?
We bring it to them. But
We bring it
again, that's the one fallout of the state contract is they have the state contract, so they're the primary vendor who provide the services. So we do have to bring the vehicles down there, and they're there for a period of time while they're being retrofitted.
Let's go.
Next item is a memorandum from our Director of Health, Dawn Centrullo. This is with regard to her fleet in the Health Department. As we talked about previously, we've canceled already a 2021 Ford Explorer lease through Enterprise, and we're replacing it with a hybrid Ford Escape. This is going to save an annual amount of $1,347 annually for their 5-year lease. This will maintain 2 vehicles in the Health Department, which are utilized by 4 employees.
Questions?
Thank you to Dawn,
She's very excited about her new hybrid
Great.
vehicle. So.
Let's
saving
go.
us money.
Okay. Next item up, back to Parks and Recreation. Sorry, my stapler's stuck. This is with regard to the purchase and installation of the playground equipment for Habernickel Park. The village was previously awarded through the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs a local recreation improvement grant for $68,000. This, in addition to $139,000, which has been approved in the 2025 capital budget, allows for us to move forward with this project for a new ADA accessible playground at Habernickel. Nancy is making a recommendation of contract award to Great Lakes Recreation of Zeeland, Michigan. This is through a Sourcewell contract, and it's a not to exceed $191,031.57. And I just want to say that the Department of Parks and Recreation has had extensive conversation with the Access Committee. I think it was discussed at Parks and Recreation as well. So there's been plenty of public input into the final design for this particular park.
Sure.
Questions?
I just want to say a couple things. First of all, thanks to the Parks Department. This is huge. But with respect to Access, when Katie came to Access, they had 2 messages: swings and something called a feelings board. So because of the situation with the retaining wall, the swings are not moving forward, but the board is there. So basically, if you have a nonverbal kid or even a younger child who can't articulate their feelings, it's an interactive board that are very, very popular to show how you feel, and it's where kids can type out messages. So we're very grateful for that. I do want to say Access is determined to have more representation on the playgrounds, and so I know that we have one tied to the diversion and one at Shedler, but they've been very vocal about this, and they were very great, and it was good exchange, because we asked for 2 things and we got 1, but there is, for that community and for siblings, it's super important that we always remember them. So I want to thank Nancy for including us, and I just think this is going to be great. But there are not going to be swings.
And I just want to distinguish, too, between an ADA accessible playground and an inclusive playground. This is an ADA accessible playground. The park that is being discussed for the Shedler property, and I actually had a conversation with staff from SHPO about this in the last 10 days, where there was some discussion about wood chips versus poured rubber. But in order to accommodate the inclusive playground, SHPO did not have an objection to poured rubber. As a way of being able to accommodate that community. So we thought that was good news as we're preparing to move forward with that project as well. So in talking to Access, we've relayed that that's the intention at Shedler as we move forward.
And it's great news, too, because inclusive playgrounds under Jake's Law would be, once the diversion is cleared, will be much more eligible. And if anybody wants, we are going on we've already started looking at some of them, but we're looking at truly inclusionary playgrounds, which are, all of them are beneficiaries of Jake's Law.
And when you talk about the Jake's Law grant program, you're talking about significant funds. You're not talking about $68,000 like we received through DCA. You're talking $500,000 to $1 million as an average award to be able to provide for inclusionary playgrounds throughout the state, and that directly comes from the DEP. So that's something that we would look forward to moving forward as we consider an inclusionary program in the village.
And there's one in Hawthorne.
And as the Green Acres diversion is cleared, then we'll
The
be...
diversion would have to be cleared for the village to be eligible for those funds.
Just to make that point, that's why it's so important to get that diversion cleared, so we can get that kind of money in grants.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever it costs us to clear the diversion, no doubt we'll be able to recuperate that very quickly
Many
in
times over.
traditional Green Acres programming funding, and also with the addition of Jake's Law now.
And then outside of the finances, enjoy the amenities that come with it, which is great. as
I
well.
worry about the business aspect.
It's just-
So in the pictures that we have, is that board featured at all?
Yeah, it's on the one page, it's green. I put it. I had to
Bottom-
zoom in, you
bottom
have a
right-hand
black and white
corner.
bottom.
I got 4 different
Fourth,
pictures.
fourth page from the back.
4th page from the back. So that would be the first one, the first
It's also
picture?
the last page.
Yep, it's also on the
Yeah, not the overhead,
That
not the
thing.
overhead
Oh, I see
schematic,
it.
but the first
Okay.
visual.
This, I was worried when I got this, I had to zoom in, I'm like, where did this mouse go?
I wasn't sure if this was all one playground that, or are these 4 different playgrounds?
One.
It's one,
but
it's just from
there's
different
multiple
views.
pieces, and then we
Gotcha.
even included a lot
Okay.
of what we're purchasing from the, and this vendor came to our meeting as well, which was also great.
There's actually 2 interactive locations in this playground. One is the board, that's a standalone piece at the bottom.
Uh-huh.
And then just above that, you have that ramp. There's interactive activities along the top end of that railing there as well.
Yeah, that stuff I've seen before in playgrounds. Okay, so then my next question is, in the estimate that, that the vendor sent us, they said under installation that grade work and drainage improvement lines are not included unless specifically listed above. Did we? I don't think we did. And so my question becomes, are we doing those things in-house? Are we able to do those things in-house?
We have the ability to do some of that work through the Parks Department and through Signal. I know Nancy's been in close contact with Jovan in engineering and with Matt during the course of planning this out. So I'm not exactly sure what site preparation we're going to do in-house. I could certainly get the answer to that question to you. But I do know that there was extensive discussion because we did want to include the swing amenities into this plan, but that would have required us to move the retaining wall, which would have been a significant endeavor. That's why we pulled back from that. That's not to say that down the line we can't add swings to Habernickel, but it's just not part of this plan. But I can get the scope of the in-house site work to you and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Good. Let's go.
Okay, the next item, which is the roof replacement here at Village Hall, I'm actually going to hold this over to next week's agenda. I've asked Heather to relist this next week. We're going to have a secondary memorandum submitted by engineering answering some questions that the deputy mayor and a few other council members had on this. And Chris is going to be here next week to make the presentation on the intersection of Glen and Oak. So we'll have him speak to this proposal as well. So we're going to hold this over to the July 2nd council meeting.
Good.
Number 8 on the agenda is remediation action at Habernickel Park. All of the physical work is done. It was conducted on December 31st by a contractor who we worked through Matrix. This action needs to be taken at the next council meeting in order to close out the site remediation process. The LSRP needs to issue a remedial action outcome, which is what this memorandum from Chris outlines to you tonight, and this will finalize and bring the Habernickel soil remediation issue to closure.
Questions? Let's go.
Next item is the former town garage site at 120 Franklin Avenue. This is a change order for LSRP services for that site. We're looking to contract with VHB Inc., who we have used in the past, both for this and the adjacent property at North Walnut. Chris is recommending the award of this for environmental services for the oversight of the remediation efforts moving forward at the former town garage site. As I reported earlier tonight, we will need to do periodic testing at this location, and he's recommending this award not to exceed $10,000.
Everybody good? Let's go.
Next item is the Kingsbridge Lane pedestrian bridge structural repair. This is a second change order for Fred Devon's Construction. The bridge deck has been fully removed, and the contractor has been able to carefully measure and examine it. As I mentioned, the previous change order had to do with the existing infrastructure at the site. It was observed that the existing handrails on the side of the bridge, as they are set, are at an insufficient height to meet the requirements. So change order 2 is for the design work to provide for the proper height of the hand railings for the structural repair of the bridge. This will be awarded to Fred Davins Constructions in the amount of $7,196.01, and the funds are available through the bond ordinance specifically for this project.
Good. Let's go.
Next item is from our tax collector, resolution for a refund amount for an overpayment in the amount of $139.
Let's go.
Also from our tax collector is a resolution for tax-exempt veteran refund. This is in the amount of $4,085.33. This is for a veteran who is 100% tax exempt.
Next.
Next item complements the $68,000 grant that the Parks and Recreation Department received for the Habernickel Park. This is a insertion of that money into the budget. It's Chapter 59 resolution.
And that's it.
That is all. That concludes my portion of the agenda, Mayor.
Thank you. And let's return to public comment. Anybody?
Good evening, Ann Loving, Ridgewood resident. I understood that there's going to be poured rubber as a playground surface. I didn't get whether that was proposed for Shedler or for Habernickel. I guess that provides a softer landing for kids if they fall off things, but poured rubber, you know, you're putting more rubber down if that's the case. Maybe I misunderstood you. I see somebody is shaking her head no at me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Anyone else?
Can I turn this? It's like a little annoying.
By all means.
Cynthia O'Keefe, Ridgewood resident. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you for clarifying the Hinchcliffe Stadium. I did actually know why it was in the application. But it brings me to the point that I was trying to make, and maybe you guys didn't read between the lines here, but I'm going to say it again. You know, just because Yale made a bad decision doesn't mean you have to make a bad decision. Just because SHPO made maybe some errors in judgment. I mean, that was a stadium, so maybe they felt, okay, it's appropriate, and I heard the mayor was pushing for it, and maybe they just caved. Who knows? Doesn't mean that we can't be armed with information and make other decisions. Now, Siobhan, this evening you said you believe turf is safe. So that's a pretty declarative statement. So everything you've heard Pam say, and Pam does her research, you dispute all of it, every single thing she said, right? Because by saying it's safe, just like Frank said the EPA report was safe, which it said was not a risk assessment, and it had disclaimers in it, you make these statements, and I don't think you realize, because people take sound bites from these meetings, and a lot of people listen to this meeting after the fact on YouTube, because you can see how many views there are, and you hear people talking about it in town, and they say, oh, but so-and-so said, you know, that this is safe. Like, it is irresponsible what you're doing. If that's actually what you believe, and you have interns who are listening to you talk about this, talk about handbags then. Please don't talk to them about artificial turf, and I hope that they can Google and actually, you know, do their own research without being influenced by such, I don't know, I mean, I hate to say it's ignorant, but like, this means you think you're smarter than Dr. Sarah Evans and other people who've come forth and said, turf has potential chemical compounds that can get into your body. We also just went through I believe it was $450 million PFAS remediation lawsuit. So you're going to tell me that Ridgewood Water sued the bad actors like 3M and DuPont for PFAS contamination, which you said on page 3 of the actual lawsuit, were forever chemicals that could be damaging to people, and we know that all turf has PFAS. So I guess like that's a math equation. I don't understand how you can turn around and tell me it's safe. Like, you're not a scientist. I don't know what your background is or what you studied. I'm not a scientist either, but I at least adhere to what professionals say and say to myself, you know what? I don't have all the answers, but boy, that person probably or might really know what they're talking about. So to me, it's like so irresponsible. I really just, like, maybe put your ego over here, and like whoever you think you're pleasing and fighting for, I think you need to start realizing that you need to safeguard residents and you don't have all the answers. So it's really just, I don't know, scary to me that yes, you got elected, but you really don't have all the answers. So, and you're marching in a very dangerous direction. You know, I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. I know maybe you think you're pleasing the right, and Paul, you're smirking, so I don't know really what that's all about. Maybe what I'm saying is funny, I don't know, but.
If I was smirking, I apologize.
Okay, because I've been accused of smirking, and, you know, maybe it's just my
Absolutely.
resting face. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, you know, you guys had a lawsuit where you accused people of putting PFAS into the water, and you're gonna do the same thing and let children play on it. All turf has PFAS. What kind of like, how do you justify this? I just don't understand it. So, and by just saying we simply disagree is just not good enough.
Your time is
you're-
up.
The health
you're out
and
of
welfare
time,
of
so if
our
you could
residents is important.
If you could
Thank
finish
you.
up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Boyd A. Loving, Ridgewood resident. The manager mentioned tonight when he was talking about the irrigation, the two-day irrigation, about people reprogramming their sprinklers so that they didn't go off during the rain. I mentioned this the last time I was up at the microphone. I just would like to mention it again, that the village code requires that anyone who has an automatic sprinkler system has a automatic rain sensor, so that if it rains more than 1/4 of an inch, the sprinkler system is not supposed to turn on. I don't know how many inspections are taking place to make sure that everybody has one of those who has a system, but again, the code indicates that you're supposed to have that, so you shouldn't need to reprogram your system. It should be shutting off the system automatically. There was mention made tonight about the Dunham Trail and the bank stabilization project. I wanted to mention that's the last time I was at the microphone, but I ran out of time. I know that the council has approved funding for that. And it just concerns me that that waterway is not really owned by the Village of Ridgewood. The banks are owned by the Village of Ridgewood, but the damage is caused by water that is flowing down from other places. We are downstream from the Northwest Bergen sewage treatment plant. I'm just wondering if there is funding available from the state or from that plant, because the damage is occurring as a result of water flowing down from other places. It's not water that is being generated per se in Ridgewood. So why the Ridgewood taxpayers are on the hook for paying for bank restabilization that is caused by something else, I don't know. And I would just like to know if options have been pursued in terms of obtaining funding from another source, the county or the state, in helping with this project rather than the Ridgewood taxpayers paying it all. The last comment I'd like to make tonight is about the sensory friendly. My wife and I were in Pelham, New York recently, the town she grew up in, attending a Memorial Day parade. And I noticed as the fire trucks were coming down the street, how many children had to put their hands over their ears. And I'm just wondering if a portion, a block or two long, of the parade that is going on the 4th of July in Ridgewood can be declared a sensory-friendly area where there are no bands playing, no fire trucks with lights or sirens going on, a place where the parents who have children who are upset by these kind of things can be directed to a certain block or area where that noise and those lights aren't going to happen, so they can enjoy the parade as much as those of us who don't mind the noise. Right now on the 4th of July, that is basically a very bad day for people who have sensory overload. You have the fireworks going on, you have sirens, you have lights, you have bands playing. Is there an area along the route that we can set aside where we can tell people, no noise in this area, and then you can start your noise again once you've left the area? Just something to think about. I know it's relatively late in the game, but perhaps it's something that could be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyd. Anyone else from the audience? No, let's go to our hybrid access. Amy, you're up.
Hi, Amy McCambridge, Ridgewood resident. I just want to start off by saying, like, the youth sports club boards have clearly, like, they're loyal to you is like, it's like crazy. It's impressive, really. Like, they'd rather sell out the safety of our kids than risk falling out of favor with this council. So I just want you guys to know that whatever it is your contracts are or the money they're giving you, they have your back. I know you probably all know that I was fired because I wouldn't sign the contract that would prohibit me from speaking out as a private resident on issues that are extremely concerning. So after 2 decades of being a leader for these young women, the Maroons had your back. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. So again, not for poor performance, not misconduct. I was fired for asking questions, for refusing to stay quiet while turf temperatures hit dangerous levels and while we continue to pollute the Hohokus Brook and harm every single species connected to it. And we do absolutely nothing. I chose truth, and in Ridgewood, that seems to be a fireable offense. This week, just 3 feet off the ground near Maple, the temperature was 64 degrees on the grass. On the turf, it was 160 degrees, and this is when it was still 93 with a soft wind. And still, there's no safety protocols, no threshold, no plan, just passive politics and silence. Mayor, you say like, oh my God, look how beautiful Graydon is. But again, has anyone tested the soil, the water? You have contamination like galore from Maple Field that has been going on for years that have no doubt filled into the soil, probably leaching into Graydon. But you like clearly have a lot of money because I just heard your budget, but you don't test and you don't know what's leaching into that pool. And the excuse that PFAS is everywhere is like the lamest response ever. If poison is everywhere, then maybe we should stop adding more. Even in the United States Marine Corps, the most leading fighting force in the world, halts all training when heat and humidity rise above 90 degrees. We have a flag system because they understand the risk. But here in Ridgewood, we throw 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds onto 158 toxic plastics, and we say that's progress. So let me ask, like, do the Marines have it wrong? Because maybe they should come and consult with you guys. And since you refuse to hold a public panel on this issue, ours is rescheduled for Wednesday, September 4th at 7 with real scientists, the real facts, and Keith Fisher, a natural field expert that will be coming to speak. It'll be 7 o'clock on September 4th. And lastly, like, it's just, it's sad, frankly, that those entrusted with public safety can't be bothered to do their due diligence. And this is the only question I'd like answered tonight, because normally you guys just ignore any of my questions. When the next heat wave comes and it hits over 95 degrees, I'm asking you to join me on that turf. No shade, no optics, just 45 minutes on that surface you continue to endorse. Because if you won't stand on it, you shouldn't be voting for it. Let your own body feel what you're forcing these children to endure, and then, like Winograd and those who keep saying it's safe, tell me that's safe.
Amy, your time is up. If you could finish up, that would be good.
Got it. Leadership means standing in the heat, and right now you all are in the air conditioning. So I hope you join me on the next heat wave. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Seeing no one else, I'm going to close public comment. Does anybody want to respond to any of the comments made?
I do, Mayor, through you to Mrs. Loving. A poured rubber surface is a requirement of an inclusive playground because children who are in wheelchairs, children who have mobility issues need to be able to access the playground equipment on a flat surface. So if an inclusionary playground is to be included in any plan, whether it be Shedler or somewhere else in the village, it would need to be a poor rubbered surface in order to provide all of the children access to the play equipment. Ms. O'Keefe, on September 5th, I shared with you a spreadsheet that reflected the 2023 Department of Environmental Protection grant awards for turf fields in the state of New Jersey. It amounted to $5.3 million. The Department of Environmental Protection is the state agency who is responsible for protecting our environment and protecting the health of the people who live in the state of New Jersey. I can tell you that I just received an update this week that an additional $2 million was awarded in 2024 for the installation of turf fields here in the state of New Jersey. The reason I bring this up is because as the manager here in the village of Ridgewood, I am concerned about misinformation being put out on the street, and then my office needing to correct that when people come to us to make inquiry. And the reason I bring up these grant awards is because on one hand, we are very much guided on environmental issues when it comes to the soil issues that exist on the Shedler property. And many residents in Ridgewood have championed that cause and made sure that they have been in constant contact with the Department of Environmental Protection so that they were assured by that agency who's responsible and play that role at the state level here in New Jersey that everything was being done properly. So it's a little hard for me to accept that on one hand, the DEP is held in high regard, as they should be, and that they are the authority to make sure that all environmental steps are being taken to properly remediate the Shedler property. Yet on the other hand, the DEP is not taken as a valuable source when they're awarding now close to $7.3 million worth of awards over a 2-year period to install turf fields in New Jersey. So I just think that that's an important point for the public to be aware of. If we're going to hold the DEP in high regard, which we should, and follow all of their requirements, their procedures, their regulations, we should do that on all fronts. Mr. Loving, you're right. I just had a meeting this morning with Rich Calby. Actually, we did a podcast with Ridgewood Talks, and we talked about the issue that you brought up at the prior meeting with regard to the water sensors and making sure that we're not irrigating during rain events, and we've had a rainy period. So we are on that, and we are getting weekly reports of violations for watering on wrong days and also watering during rainstorms. I'll get back to you on the Dunham Trail issue. I will talk to Rich about that tomorrow because that's a Ridgewood Water project. The sensory-friendly item I will bring back to Councilman Weitz, who's not here tonight, so that he can share that idea with the 4th of July committee. And to Ms. McCambridge, I would assume that you did not see the beginning portion of the meeting where I went over in detail after the first public comment about the safety precautions that we have taken. Our summer camp program started on Monday. We have not had any children on Maple Field as part of our summer camp program because of the excessive heat. As I also mentioned at the top of the meeting, RBSA canceled their ball games on Monday night on Maple Field in light of the excessive heat. So we are following the NJSIAA protocol, just as the schools do. We're implementing that, and I know you said a number of times tonight that we were putting children in harm's way by putting them on the turf field that the village has ownership of. That is not the case. That is not the case, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Can I go?
Sure.
Thanks. So I understand the whole thing with turf is a very passionate discussion on both sides, and I think and it's something that, like, Pam and I are friends, and I can respect that she and I have differing opinions on this. And there's a lot of science out there, and the one thing that I want to say is not my position, or your position, but that there's a lot of science out there, and it's incorrect to say that the other side is not looking at science because they disagree with your point of view. And so it's just, there's a lot of science out there, and I'm not going to say my point, but I did write down all the sources of where my opinion is based on. And I think that my fellow council person, Winograd, does a lot of research as well. And so I do think it's incorrect to say that she's not looking at science. So resources that I've looked at, US EPA and CDC, NJDEP, the Netherlands National Institute for Health and Environment, the European Chemicals Agency, the Norwegian Institute of Public Health, International Journal of Risk Analysis, Journal of Environmental Pollution, Journal of Environmental Science and Technology Letters, New Jersey Balanced Land Use Standard, National Recreation and Park Association Peer Population Per Acre Benchmark, and North Carolina State Extension Publications. So what's great about what we do here is we get to debate, but I think it's important to also respect the other side and just realize that you're using other points of view when you make your opinion, and the same is true for us. Thank you.
Do you want
I stood in for Evan Whites at the 4th of July parade meeting this morning, and I think that was their last meeting before the actual parade. So I don't know that there's time to take into account what you've suggested, Boyd, but I have spoken to Tara Masterson before about noise pollution and how dangerous it is for people who are not expecting the noise, like young children. And I didn't mention people with neurodiversity, but I like your suggestion, and I will talk with Tara Masterson or Lee Gilsenan tomorrow to see if there is enough time to make this change. But mostly, everybody's been deployed and they know what their marching orders are, and so I don't know if it can be changed for this year.
Yeah, I echo what Pam said. I think that's an excellent suggestion. And certainly I was thinking the same thing, calling Legal Senate tomorrow, just to see if they can set up a block, maybe on the west side, and again, here, let's put it this way. Maybe it can be done this year. If not, we'll look at doing it next year. So thanks for the good suggestion.
Nice idea.
I have a couple things to say. So I think it's an excellent idea. I do want to say that the recommendation from Access last year was that it be broadcasted, because the community always felt like this is a great parade, and possibly the 4th of July committee could broadcast it so people could watch it at home. This was also very palatable to people who couldn't sustain the heat. So I don't know who's going to follow up with Evan, but I feel from Access last year, the videotaping and broadcasting, like the Thanksgiving Day parade, because the streaming would be great. And I know that he had reached out to the high school. So I do want to say, for the neurodivergent community, a parade is a rough lift. It's really hard, and I'm glad that people are beginning to think of that, because it is extremely stressful to the kids, the siblings, and the families. I wanted to just expand the inclusionary playground. I was shaking my head because it's not because of the fall, it's because of the access, but it does need to be rubber, because you can't have like concrete going underneath a climbing structure. So the rubberized, if a kid would fall, it would allow a wheel to get across, but it would also absorb the shock of a falling body. I did want to say, because there was this suggestion or a challenge to the council that during the next heat wave we spend 45 minutes out on a turf field. That would be in violation of our safety procedures. Nobody should, during the heat wave, during the height of the hours outside of the guidelines, be standing or playing on those fields. So, I mean, I just want to say, I do believe in my statements, but for adults to be suggesting that you put health and risk and encourage people to stand outside on something that the town is actively discouraging during those times, that would be irresponsible. And, okay, Cynthia, that is not what I said. I said I believe turf to be safe. With respect to, I discount everything Pam says? Of course not. We would all agree turf is hotter, which is why we close and have different recommendations for a turf field. I did not say that, but yet it was attributed to me, which leads me to my next part. Sadly, the interns that we were recognized here, in an effort to say something to me, we have taken the words of a 16-year-old who was speaking in public for the first time and twisted them. So what I say to my kids, and it's a two-way street, they say things to me, is that the worst local game is this strategy. Oversimplify it, polarize it, divide it, and then personalize it. I said I believe turf to be safe. I do have a degree in engineering, which is a technical degree. I believe it to be safe, and Pam does not. That's it. It doesn't have to be so personal. Fundamentally, what I would tell the kids if they were here, in addition to what to wear to work, what handbags, however funny that is to people, is you have a philosophical difference. People are drawing on multiple facts. I'm not discounting the other facts. We have looked and ruled out crumb rubber. We're looking at eco-friendly turf. We are doing all that. But to oversimplify, polarize it, divide it, and then attempt to personalize it isn't going to work. And that's what I would tell my interns.
I have one more comment. And Boyd, I just thought of something that might make it difficult to do it this year, which is there's also a crowd issue. That the neurodivergent community has trouble with crowds. So you'd have to, instead of just saying to the participants in the parade that, okay, this is a quiet zone, now there's also a logistical matter of setting up a less crowded area just for neurodivergent families, which, not that that can't be done, that might be tough to do in just a couple of days. Whereas, and not that we're not going to suggest it, but that's a real big issue for this community. So for that reason, because other than that, I'm thinking, yeah, I think this might be able to be done. That's going to be a little trickier, but Pam and I are going to talk to Legal Senate tomorrow and see if we can put it in place. And again, if not this year, we're certainly going to shoot for, again, next year if it can't be done for this year. But again, I think it was a very insightful suggestion. Thank you. Anybody else? All good? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's go.